Kong remained as a metropolis conceals a serious social problem that completely violates human rights. Over 80,000 properties are living in inadequate housing, which includes cubicles, cage homes, subdivided units. Today, we are lucky to invite the chairman of Society for Community Organization, Mr. Lam, to analyze this phenomenon for us and bring out some hypothesized solution in this issue.
Hello, thank you for inviting me to this program. I'm glad to be here to speak on inadequate housing problem in Hong Kong. Cubicles, subdivided units and rooftop houses are usually less than 100 square feet. The cage home tend to be just almost 20 square feet. That means the person who lives in cage home only occupy a bed space privately for himself. Such condition is really ridiculous and completely violate human rights as announced by the United Nations.
It is out of our imagination while most of the Hong Kong citizens are still living in a public flat. Apart from insufficient private space, would the overcrowded condition lead to other undecided problems?
Such housing condition will cause health and security problems. Since 1990, we have held a research to interview residents of inadequate housing about their personal health, both physically and mentally, and what we had discovered was surprising.
Over 79% of residents in cubicles and 69% of residents in cage home are suffering with different extents of illness such as respiratory disease. It reveals that the majority are suffer from poor residential condition. Meanwhile, most of these residents work hard to maintain their living. According to our research, we have found that median of rent-to-income ratio of those residents is 34.4 as investigated in 2012. This proportion of payment is unreasonable and this adds burden to their life.
Thank you for mentioning the consequence of inadequate housing problem with that much detail. I believe the audience will have a more clear view towards the problem. I would like to raise another question. What kinds of solutions can the government propose to solve this problem?
Public housing problem is a complex social problem. But in these many years, our supply of public housing is fluctuated and isn't in a steady level. The reason behind is because politicians in Hong Kong incline to assist big corporations and benefit them. Hence, the problem can't be clear. Due to the shortage of public housing, the so-called 3 years waiting promised by the government is tolerable. Unless the government pushes up to 35,000 public housing supply each year, it will be impossible to feed the needs of 100,000 waiting applicants, which are on an increasing trend.
So, what else can the government do apart from increasing amount of public housing?
Specific measures should be implemented to assist poverty who live in inadequate housing.
The most effective temporary measure is to subsidize them apart from the basic CSSA fund. Certain subsidizing policies in terms of rent, miscellaneous expense, and renovation expense are provided to public housing residents each year. However, it obviously shows that the subsidies are insufficient for inadequate housing residents when compared with public housing residents. We highly recommend the government to launch an extra subsidy program that is distributed every month to support their daily life. In contrast, the government has to impose strict regulation to leaseholders to forbid them to make further rental addition. Besides, the housing policy on leasing inadequate housing nowadays is a loophole in law. The petitioned room for rent in one particular flat must not be more than 12. However, such implementation of policy is nearly useless because this kind of activity can still be executed if the petition part for rent is less than 12. I'm here to appeal to government to make amendments to the policy immediately because this would worsen the issue with an unclear clarification. The landlord's rule would indulge this thing to happen. Last but not least, in order to achieve the ultimate goal, a series of mechanisms should be launched. First, the government ought to prioritize residents of inadequate housing on the waiting list of allocation of public housing. It is observed that the housing needs are the most urgent. Moreover, the government ought to promote single-person hostel as an interim housing for single residents who are living in inadequate housing now. This act must be instantaneous, and this will provide an immediate alleviation to this problem.
In conclusion, inadequate housing is an unacceptable phenomenon in well-developed city, and it should be eliminated in Hong Kong. Thank you for watching this video. Bye!
Bye.